Let's take a look at some charts on Ripple from this week's article on Brave New Coin. I always have mixed feelings about coins like Ripple. Obviously, it's at the top of the market cap list, and for some deserves to be discussed in the conversation about what's going on with the coin, the ecosystem. To most crypto natives, Ripple doesn't really fit the spirit of crypto in that it is a 100% pre-mine that continues to enrich the founders. Arguably a strong case for a security in the US. There's continued purposeful brand confusion between XRP, the token, and Ripple, the company. Less so nowadays, but social media bots and astroturfing continue to falsely create a seemingly genuine community that is supportive of the decisions made at Ripple or anything relative to Ripple. So looking at the market cap of Ripple compared to everything else, you might say to yourself, wow, this coin is fourth by market cap. And a thought experiment would be, let's create a coin, you and me, with 200 billion tokens. I sell one to you for $50. All of a sudden the market cap is a bajillion. And hey, you're on this list too. That's kind of the state of Ripple. Unfortunately, because coins are listed kind of ubiquitously, exchanges care less and less these days, especially with DeFi. If you're a coin and you're listed anywhere, you're never going to die. The worst that could happen to any coin is delistings. Kind of Monero's problem. It's not really listed anywhere. If it was listed places, it'd be a different story. But Ripple's listed everywhere. It's listed in Robinhood, places that aren't necessarily even crypto. It's really big in Japan, SBI, that sort of thing. It may serve as a go-between intermediary for cross-border transactions. I think those days are numbered as well, especially with digital currencies coming from central banks. If Ripple's shtick is we're going to connect banks to banks, we're going to be the new SWIFT, and here comes this new digital currency controlled by central banks, I think most countries are going to opt out of using Ripple and using central bank currencies. Obviously that will change based on a geopolitical basis, but for the most part, I don't see Ripple taking over a central bank currency or multiple central bank currencies, or even being the intermediary. You know, even Libra is threatening Ripple's model of being some sort of go-between. So it's hard to see a future for Ripple that is bright. Even prior to this year, the question was always, why does this coin exist? As is the case for many coins, but specifically Ripple. If we look at what happens as far as with Ripple, the company selling Ripple to other people, they can say they have OTC sales. This is the Q2 report that they released. I don't have a Q3 report that was updated on the website. You can see they've stopped programmatic sales. Something curious about this is they've stopped programmatic sales, but their share of the total Ripple in circulation has increased and continues to increase over the past few weeks, months. I don't really understand that. I have a theory that they are accumulating whatever Jed McCaleb is selling on Bitstamp. I'll talk about that later, which could be completely wrong, but just a theory. I don't know how they're selling this much Ripple and have also been accumulating Ripple. Maybe they've talked about that, I just missed it. And they will tell you that the total amount of sales they have is a drop in the bucket compared to what the total volume across the board is, which is possible. But they do this to color the lens to say, our selling is nothing compared to the market. But again, who's getting enriched here is Ripple the company. Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO, has said himself that we would not be profitable if it were not for sales of Ripple the token. The escrow that goes in and out once a month based on who buys it also enriches not the token holders, but the company. And that's pretty black and white, I think, to anybody looking at this, saying what's going on here. So Ripple's holdings have increased little by little over the past few months. Circulating Ripple continues to increase. Programmatic escrow continues to decrease slightly. This will never increase. This will only decrease. So there's some weirdness here that I either didn't look hard enough or can't explain, but Ripple increasing their holdings is a bit odd to me. Hopefully they'll explain that in their next quarterly report. If we look at the network itself, they're on 1.6.0. More than 50% of the network has upgraded Total nodes around 1,000. Total full nodes unknown, full node size also unknown, but quite large. Again, another flashing warning sign is we don't know the number of full nodes, we don't know the size of the full nodes. Similar cases for EOS, Ethereum, we don't know the number of full nodes. Full nodes are important because they are part of the decentralization package. You're not truly a decentralized network if a few people can decide the history of what's happened in the past. If we look at transaction counts and fees, Ripple is still the cheapest or one of the cheapest coins to send. Transactions are basically unchanged really over the past few years. There hasn't been an organic rise in transactions for a long time now. And what I mean by that is not a couple weeks of spiking, which was spam attack related, or even a couple months of sustained plateau. Just you want to see a rise and rise and rise. Just as this fall and fall and fall was clearly organic doldrums of 2018, bearish. You want to see the opposite of that if this has some legs as far as price-wise. If we look at active address count, again, here's that spam network attack. Active addresses haven't really changed. Again, if you look at this compared to anything that's bullish, it's hard to convince yourself that Ripple, the token, is going anywhere anytime soon. Now, if you look at even 2019, even this micro rise in active addresses really spoke to the amount of speculation or increased speculative activity at the time. And this brief rise a few months ago, similar. Overall, though, currently it's just flatlining. There's really no sustained rise. If you look at the all-time high in price, how that looked versus now, there's none of that at all. So definitely not bullish there. I can't really explain the NVT, which is an inverse metric of economic utility. I don't know why it continues to be bullish in a vacuum. Doesn't make sense to me. My only justification for this is escrow transactions related, or I don't know, honestly. It's not a very useful metric for non-proof of work tokens that I can tell based on analysis of several networks, but specifically for Ripple and Stellar, I just don't think it's a useful metric at all, really. Google Trends, much like active addresses, just completely flatlining over the past few years. No redeeming bullish qualities to that whatsoever. If we look at the fun stuff, technicals, 50, 200 EMA, yearly pivots, volume, RSI, open interest on Bitfinex. Open interest has increased on the long side and decreased on the short side over the past few weeks. Kind of interesting. It's up to 88% long now. Overall, just looking at this in a vacuum, you can say price has remained flat or it declined over the past 2 years. There's really been nothing sustainable going on here. There are random spikes kind of around their conference times, which is coming up or has already happened. Maybe that was canceled this year because of COVID stuff, but EMAs are technically bullish still. I expect this to break down. I expect a retest of this volume node at 20 cents, 23 cents, whatever this is here. This isn't a chart that looks like it has an immediate bullish future to it. Tons of volume on Bitstamp, and if it were any other exchange, you'd say, oh, this is probably fake volume, washed volume. Bitstamp is one of the most legit exchanges besides like Kraken, Coinbase. I mean, these are not US companies, but they don't wash volume. They never have, they never will. So most likely this is Jed McCaleb's programmatic selling or something, and Ripple kind of picking up the slack so that it doesn't go to zero on Bitstamp. I don't really know. I can't really explain the rise in volume here. But there's clearly a war going on in the volume. You can see it. Tons of selling, tons of buying. Some weirdness going on there. Maybe it's something else completely, some other entity accumulating Ripple. Who knows? But I think it's Jed McCaleb selling for sure. Anything above 40 cents would be bullish. You know, it's, again, just looking at this in a vacuum, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, or lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, just nonstop, right? You want to see higher lows. You want to start to see one higher high. Keep messing up the words. Higher high. That's all you want to see. And then you could say, all right, this might be bullish. But definitely not a buy for me. Cloud says this is also bearish. Arguably some sort of mangled inverted head and shoulders here, with a break above 26 cents being bullish. Above the cloud as well at that point. Anything above 26 cents is a buy based on the cloud signals. Right now it's just kind of meandering into nothingness. And if we look at the poor soul that is XRP BTC, much like many BTC pairs over the past few years, it has been nothing but down, really. We're reaching to the point where we have to look at 2016, 2017 volume profiles for any semblance of support down here. We're at 1800 sats. My guess is we dip into this 500 to 700 sat zone over the next 6 months. Again, the EMAs are bearish. There's really no support down here. There's no wicks. There's nothing, right? There's this 700 sats maybe, the low. But you can see how volatile this gets once markets start to rotate into stuff that's sold off for 2 years, right? Or sold off 100% from the highs, you know? Like, some of this reaction to me isn't bullish results, or Ripple's all of a sudden bullish. It's Ripple's down 96%, Bitcoin's up 50%. People start rotating in and piling in more and more and more, and all of a sudden, just like Doge, this stuff goes up regardless of what it is. If it's listed somewhere, someone will trade it. So overall, I am mega bearish on Ripple. Maybe they have an IPO in the books for 2021 still, which will cause some gross increase in price, simply being relative to the company. So I really have nothing good to say about Ripple. Maybe that's just me, but technicals also look quite bearish across the board for the most part.